Oracle of Luna is a podcast with me, Bridget Engels, as your host. Here we have conversations with real live, present-day goddesses who are actively and courageously doing their magical work in the world. Each episode is a bewitching journey with relevant discussions on topics such as Wiccan pagan spirituality, writing, culture, magical practices, art, ritual, and the craft in its many forms. Merry meet! Welcome to another episode of the Oracle of Luna podcast. I'm Bridget Engels, your host, and today it is my privilege to chat with the amazing Elysia Gallo. Elysia is an acquisition editor at Llewellyn Worldwide Publishing, and she specializes in the goddess spiritual, Wiccan, and pagan book genre. Welcome, Elysia.
Thank you for having me, Bridget.
You're welcome. I'm excited to chat with you. How's your day going?
Pretty good so far.
All right. Well, we have a lot to unpack here, so let's get rolling.
All right.
The first question I have for you is, what brought you to Llewellyn Worldwide Publishing?
Well, a lot of synchronicities, which I think is common in magical communities. So esoteric subjects have always fascinated me from a very early age, like most of our authors and most of our readers. So I won't bore you getting into the details of my magical awakening. But editorially, I started out writing and editing for weekly and monthly magazines when I was living in Budapest, Hungary in the 1990s.
Ah.
And while I was there, I also translated for an agency, I copy edited for newspapers, and eventually I was editor-in-chief of a music website.
Cool.
So after I married my husband, we decided to move to America, which is back home for me, but he's Hungarian, so he had never lived here. And I said, well, let's go to St. Paul because that's where I'm from. And that's where Llewellyn Worldwide is headquartered. So every time that I came home for Christmas break, I would always buy the latest Witch's Date book and any other books I could get my hands on at half price books. So of course I was familiar with the Llewellyn brand. And I just decided, that's where I'm going to work because after working for magazines and websites, I really wanted to get into book publishing. So the first job I applied for at Llewellyn was a marketing position and I didn't get it, but that turned out to be for the best. So in the meantime, I took another project management job at a nonprofit. And a few weeks into working there, I got really, really sick with food poisoning.
Oh,
And
no.
so I was just like sick at home, trying to hold down water. And I get a call from Llewellyn that they were hiring for my position, which is acquisitions editor for Witchcraft, Paganism, and Magic.
Mm.
Um, and I was kind of like, oh gosh, I already have a job. But then I was like, what am I thinking? This is my dream job. So of course I went in and interviewed for it, and the rest is history. But another funny synchronicity that happened after I started working for Llewellyn, I found out that their first headquarters in St. Paul, after my boss Carl bought the company, was this stone Victorian mansion, which is on this beautiful, gorgeous, historic street called Summit Avenue.
Uh-huh.
Um, so my late boss Carl later moved out of that building and went to other offices. But he had sold it to a couple of Hungarians. So these Hungarians had bought the old mansion from him. And when I was in high school, I was a junior board member of the Minnesota Hungarians organization. And that is where we held our monthly meetings.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I find it just a very interesting coincidence that like all these years I had already been spending time in Carl's old home, which was once the home of Llewellyn Worldwide. And of
Wow.
course,
That's very,
yeah.
that is synchronistic.
Yeah, and also now I live just a couple blocks away from Carl's first home. So it's kind of one of those things we do call St. Paul Saint Small because everybody knows each other in some way. It's kind of like a small town masquerading as a city. But yeah, so there's always been a lot of connections and yeah, that's how I ended up at
Hmm.
Llewellyn.
That's really cool. And so I assume that you are Wiccan pagan. I just wanted to.
I'm a generic pagan, yes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I would think that that would have something to do with
Oh,
your
absolutely.
interest.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool. So Llewellyn Worldwide Publishing has a very long history of publishing magical books in the pagan Wiccan witchcraft genre since 1901. And what draws these types of authors, do you think, to Llewellyn?
Well, I think first of all, the reason why people come to us is our reputation. Like you said, we have been around since 1901. First, we were an astrology publisher, and then we got more into New Age and witchcraft starting in the 70s. And many of my current authors and I grew up on the 80s and 90s classics like Scott Cunningham, Silver Ravenwolf, Ray Buckland. So Llewellyn just kind of seems like a natural home for a lot of us. Also, Llewellyn is like dedicated to this market, knows the audience well. We're not just some new imprint from a big New York publisher that's trying to cash in whenever witchcraft gets popular again. Like we've been doing this for decades.
Yeah.
It's our lifeblood. It's a family-owned business. We're super tight-knit, and we really actually care about our authors.
Huh. That's interesting. I didn't know it was a family-owned business.
Yes, it still is to this day. Yeah.
Ah. So the type of authors that come to you or that come across your desk, they eventually get published, right? I mean, or is there a pretty long process of getting published by when you get these manuscripts?
Yeah, from the moment that a manuscript is written to the moment that it comes out as published, it's a bit more than a year. It's a bit longer than a year. And sometimes I'll start working with authors even before they've hit that finish point of writing the book in the first place.
Yeah.
So somebody might come to me with an idea, um, and I'll talk them through it, and we'll think about good ideas and brainstorm and this and that. Um, so yeah, sometimes they might come to me with an idea and the deadline for their manuscript is like a year off, and then it's another year before the book comes out. So these can
Ah,
be very long processes. So I do
yeah.
form really close relationships with some of my authors, especially ones who have done books with me more than once.
Hmm.
I have a lot of serial authors, they've done several books with me, sometimes more than a dozen. So yeah, we do get to know each other really well over that long process. But
Yeah.
basically, yeah, how it works is, they pitch it to me. I'm not the final decision maker by any means at Llewellyn. I pitch it
Hmm.
to our acquisitions committee,
Hmm.
which is made up of sales, marketing people, publicity. We talk about the book, we talk about the author, we talk about its prospects on the market, and then we get a sales estimate. And if the sales estimate is high enough, then I'm able to contract the book.
Ah, interesting. I didn't know that about publishing.
Mhm.
There's a kind of a bit of mystery, I think, behind behind the
I think
curtain
that's
of
true for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, thank you for explaining that because that makes a lot of sense that it's a long process and with several people collaborating on it, on a just a
Oh,
book.
absolutely. I mean, after I get the manuscript, I read it with some other people from the company, including the production editor, the production manager, the art director, and we all talk about like, what does this book need? Does it need illustrations? What style? This and that. And then we ask the author to make revisions to the manuscript. They revise it, it comes back, then it goes to the production editor who does the copy editing. Then the layout designer does the layout, then there's another round of proofreading, and then the author looks at the author proofs. So it is very extensive, and there's a lot of people working very hard on our books.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So what what inspires you to do the editorial work for the goddess spirituality witchcraft focused books at Llewellyn?
Well, on a personal level, just to keep learning, I'm
Yeah.
never going to stop learning. And that's one of the things I love about my job is that I'm not just doing the same thing day after day. I'm always getting new information. But on a global level, it's to continue to help shift people's perceptions of what's possible, to bring hope, to inspire change, to change our relationship with the planet and all of its beings. So yeah, there's the big picture and then there's also the little me picture.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you're in the position to shift perspectives, inspire change, and, you know, just
Yeah,
really,
I mean, people really need hope. And I mean, our
yeah.
whole climate is kind of crazy right now. both physically and astrally and mentally and everything, there's so much chaos about that it really helps people to find something that's meaningful to them in their lives.
Absolutely. And have a spiritual home sort of.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
important. It anchors us to the soul. So
Yes.
it's wonderful. So that leads me to my next question. As an editor at Llewellyn, what kind of responsibility do you feel you have to the goddess spiritual community? I myself grew up and started my spiritual journey going to bookstores, reading as much as I could, researching. Without those books, I wouldn't be the witch that I am. And I'm just
Yeah.
wondering, how do you feel about that? I mean, you're in a really have a pretty cool responsibility.
Yeah, yeah. So one of the main things for me is like accuracy. Like you just said that you used to go to the library and read all these books. Fact checking wasn't a thing in the 1990s. It was so hard to get your hands on sources. Um,
Ah,
a lot of the books from that era didn't have the footnotes or citations, so it's really hard to fact check things that were published back then in that era. Whereas nowadays, so much is available. Like there's no excuse not to be accurate and faithful and representative and everything else because you've got Google Books, you've got scholarly journals, you've got primary sources at museums and libraries, all being freely accessible via the internet now.
mm-hmm.
So we really owe it to our readers to have solid sources. So that's one of my main things is I don't want to publish, I don't know how to put this delicately, but you know,
Go
I
ahead.
don't publish made up fantasy land things. You know, I want us to be rooted in what has gone before us. So that's one thing. Then another thing is that's a huge responsibility is not just to be inclusive, but supportive, being
Yes.
supportive and lifting up authentic voices, particularly those of historically oppressed communities.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really important for us right now, and has been. So, and then one of the third things is just, to give people unique books and products. So we don't want just more and more of the same thing, but that every product that we have should have a different message or a different take on something.
Mm. I find that really interesting because when you go to a bookstore or you go online, sometimes you don't really know what you're looking for. But Llewellyn, I mean, it's amazing if people go to your website. It's the amount and the variety and the diversity of authors and books. It's just incredible.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
yeah, but it's obvious that Llewellyn has a vision, and
Yes.
it's incredible. Leading to my next question, what do you see as the future of publishing for goddess spirituality, witchcraft, pagan book publishing? Is there anything like out there that you can foresee in the future, or is there anything missing from bookshelves, or are people even going to be reading books in the future?
Well, it's funny because my husband is a musician, so I've seen firsthand how streaming music has really decimated the music industry. It's changed the way that people are able to consume music. When is the last time you bought a CD or a record?
Yeah.
People stream music now. You can have anything you want on demand. But books are one of those holdouts for some reason. Like, right? People really love the feel and the smell of a book, especially if it's a really nicely produced book. Um, so I think that there is a future for books, and I think that the trend in our particular sphere of like witchcraft, magical, goddess spirituality books, it's greater specificity. So basically, we have this whole pagan magic umbrella, right, that people have
Yeah.
been flocking to for decades. And then once we're here, people find out what they're actually interested in. And they carve out their own particular niche based on their lived experiences. Um, like whether that's including their own personal history, the history of the land that they live on, the history of their people or their ancestors, right? It's
Hmm.
different for everybody what part is going to grab them. If it's mythology, if it's personal gnosis, but everybody drills down to something more and more specific. So I think that's what we see in a lot of our books is you don't just get a general overall broad view of a topic, but we have more and more specific topics. And then the other thing you asked, is there anything missing? And one of my pet peeves is when would-be authors, people who have not yet submitted a book to me, and they ask, like, what should I write about? What would you like me to write a book about? And I'm like, I can't answer that question. Like,
Yeah.
you need to know what you should be writing about
Yeah.
because it has to be something that you're passionate about. It has to be something that you're on the same wavelength with because you're going to spend a year writing the book. You're going to spend another year revising and editing the book. Then you're going to spend hopefully the rest of your life promoting the
Right.
book, right? I mean, but at least like the next year, right? Talking about it, blogging
Yeah.
about it, going on people's podcasts about it, right? It has to be something that you love. And I can't tell you what that is, right?
Right.
Everybody has to find that on their own. So I can't forecast trends in like, oh, we need more books on this or that. Because honestly, it depends on what's happening in the community, what's happening in people's brains, what's happening in their lives that's important to them.
Right. Yeah. Shifts in perspectives
Mm.
about paganism and witchcraft. And I think COVID had a huge impact on
Oh,
people's
yeah.
perceptions of what is paganism, what's Wiccan, what's
Yeah.
witchcraft now. And so I think, like you said, it's always going to evolve, really.
Right. I mean, our books now are completely different from what they were 20 years ago, and I fully expect that 20 years from now, they will be completely different than what they are right now.
Yeah. Huh. Okay. So very cool. Yeah, I'm just my mind. I'm look as I'm gazing at my bookshelf here. Of all the wonderful books that Llewellyn has published, and even the date books and
Mm.
the Spell-a-days and all those other kind of books that come out. Those are like I love those. I love having those come out on a yearly basis.
Yes, the annuals, we love
Hmm.
them.
Yeah, those are really very special and very unique. So
Always new voices, right? Every
yeah,
year there's new essays, new authors, and it's always, like I said before, it's this journey of learning, like continuous, ongoing, lifelong learning.
right. And that's what a good author should be doing anyway, too.
Yeah, definitely.
So does Llewellyn Worldwide have any upcoming special events that include author presentations?
I'm so glad you asked. So one of our biggest events of the year is coming up in 2 weeks. So we have this big conference called Llewellyn Con, and this is something new that was started during the pandemic because people weren't able to get together. And so we started an online conference. And basically we have presentations from 40 different Llewellyn authors on all different sorts of topics. It runs from June 6th through June 15th. And best of all, it's completely free.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. Yay.
So, you can find out about that on Llewellyn's website. But beyond that, beyond the once a year event, we also, like every month, we have Llewellyn Virtual Author Forum events, where we'll have like 4 different authors come together and talk about a specific topic.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, there was one at Yule time and there was like, one about gardening and stuff like that. So there's cool topics. So if you're on the Llewellyn website, which is www.llewellyn.com, you have to scroll to the bottom. There's a subscribe button or link or whatever. And if you find the word subscribe on the page, you click on that. And then there's a whole bunch of different newsletters that you can subscribe to. So there you would choose the one that's called Author Events. And then you get emails on all of the upcoming events, whether they're Llewellyn author events, virtual events, or even, your favorite author talking on a podcast or your favorite author appearing at a bookstore or a conference somewhere. So those are really handy emails to get.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's awesome because, you could follow a specific author or you could just jump on one of those virtual events and just kind of
Mhm.
tune in on your what time of day are they usually? Are they on?
So they start at 9 in the morning and they go until about 4 p.m. every day. So there's a
Wow.
session at 9, there's a session at 11, there's a session at 1, there's a session at 3, and of course these are all Central Standard Time.
Hmm.
So you have to do the math on that. But the cool thing about these is that once the broadcast is finished, we do upload them to our YouTube channel. So if you can't watch them live, you can definitely watch them on YouTube. The cool thing about the live version is there's a whole chat feature, so you can, submit questions. You can chat with other people there. So it's kind of fun to watch it live, but when I'm working, I don't always get a chance to watch all of them.
Yeah.
Um,
But that's really cool that Llewellyn puts those on.
yeah.
And it's such a great way to promote an author too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And we have a great lineup this year, like every year, but
Well, I can't wait. I didn't know it was free. I think that's awesome. Llewellyn Con is 100% free. That's really cool.
you can also like sign up you can get a sticker and you can sign up to win giveaways as well. So it's not just that. So you sign up and there's other goodies and fun things going on. So
Very cool. Wow. So anything else you would like to talk about as far as Llewellyn Publishing goes? I mean, people have the website and they know a lot about upcoming events, but
mhm.
anything else you might want to bring up about
Um,
how magically amazing Llewellyn is?
it is magically amazing. No, I mean, I've been there for almost 19 years now, which is crazy to think out
Wow.
loud. Like
Good
it
for
makes
you.
makes me feel
Woo.
like an old lady. But it does feel like family. It does feel like home. Maybe a dysfunctional family at times, right? Coworkers can have issues and there's always something that needs fixing and there's always something on fire that we've got to put out. So but it's fun, right? It's
Yeah.
it's definitely the perfect job for me personally. Like it just fits all of my interests and skill sets very nicely. But yeah, I think that it's a great company and um I have I'm not the only acquisitions editor at Llewellyn.
Yeah. Right. You work with a team, right?
Yes, there's a whole bunch of us. So, well, not a whole bunch. Let me think here. One, two, three. There's four other besides me. So there's five of us. Um, and we all acquire in slightly different subject matters. But we're all doing this work and we're all super excited and we're all champions for our authors. We represent the company to the author, but we represent the author to the company, if
Mm,
that makes sense.
yeah.
So when I'm at a meeting, I'm trying to get the best for my author. I'm trying to represent their interests. And then when I write to the author, I'm trying to get them to write the very best book that they can by telling them about the interests of the company, right? Like,
Yeah.
we think this is what's going to help this be a better product. This is going to help the tone to attract more people or whatever the case may be.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
so yeah, it's a labor of love. I mean, and it's a great community to be a part of, as you well know, because you've talked with so many, not just of my authors, but other people in the community, right?
Yes.
I think
Yes.
that, I mean, there's always going to be a couple, maybe bad apples or bad actors, but for the most part, we have a really great community of wonderful, loving, and caring people.
Oh, that's amazing. And so supportive, which I love. It can be
Well,
as an author, it can be pretty lonely out there when you're writing.
oh yes. I mean, that's the flip side, right? All the
Yeah.
work that the author does on their own for months, agonizing over every word and sentence
Right.
and some people say that they hear my voice in their head now. Oh, Elysia would be telling me not to do this, or whatever.
Yeah. No, that's
Um,
great. That's great. It's when you're writing a book and then you're doing rewrites, you're like, is this even worth it? Help.
but it's so worth it at the end. Like I get this great feeling when I hold a new book in my hands. And I can only imagine it's like 1,000 times better for the author of that book.
Yeah. Yeah.
To hold
Huge.
that precious new book and be like, I did this, I made this, I had a part of this.
Yeah. Your blood, sweat,
So
and tears is involved in that
yes,
product.
exactly. Exactly.
So, just quick question. Llewellyn Worldwide, does that imply that authors are from all over the world or are
We
books
do. I mean,
translated into different
yeah,
languages?
we
Okay.
have done a couple translations. That's not one of the main things that we do, but we have published, for example, a translation of a Brazilian book. We've published a translation of a German book. We have many authors for whom English is not their native language, but they did write their book in English. For example, several of our Welsh authors, Welsh is their native language, but they write in English.
Hmm.
We have many people who Spanish is their native tongue and they wrote the book in English. So, we do have authors around the globe for sure. And we do have distribution around the globe as well.
Oh, okay. So, okay, that makes sense then. Yeah. I was just going to ask about out of print books, but I don't know if you can address that or not. I came across like a book I wanted and it was out of print. I was like, oh,
Oh,
darn it.
oh, that's always sad. It's sad
Yeah.
for me too as an editor when I see one of my books that I worked on go out of print.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
And it's kind of like, you know what, some books just didn't hit the mark or who knows what. And
Yeah.
sometimes a book has been in print for 20 years and we finally let it go because times are changing. But usually it just depends on the sales. So if we're
Hmm.
selling like less than 100 copies a year of a book, it's time to let it go. It's just taking up space in our warehouse and we need that space for no new cool books. Like
Yeah.
new exciting authors who have new things to say. So yeah,
Yeah.
it is sad. Luckily, there's a great aftermarket. There's Abe Books, there's Better World Books, there's, half price books. There's a
Hmm.
ton of places where people can shop for books that are out of print. And of course, some of the rare ones do get pricey, but that's
Yeah.
just how it works, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, this has been a great pleasure chatting today, and I really just want to say what an honor it has been. And thank you for your vision and your passion for inspiring authors and supporting them in the publishing process and publishing just the amount of talent worldwide with Llewellyn. And thank you again.
Oh, Bridget, you are too kind. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's about time to sign off. And thanks to all the listeners for tuning in today. And
Thank
also,
you.
yeah, thanks everybody. And see you next time. Blessed be. Bye bye.
Bye bye.